Imagine a land blessed with vast deposits of diamonds, gold, cobalt, and copper. A land so abundant that, in theory, it could easily fuel the world's insatiable appetite for minerals and energy. And yet, the people living within its borders continue to survive in poverty, struggling for the most basic necessities. Welcome to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the second largest state in Africa after Algeria, and a country that, sadly, ranks among the poorest in the world by various economic measures. With a GDP per capita of just $577, the average Congolese citizen generates under $2 worth of wealth per day, living on even less. This number is a mere 6% of the global average and less than 1% of advanced economies like the United States. At such a level of poverty, GDP figures start to lose their meaning as people turn to producing for themselves instead of contributing to the broader economy. But the tragic reality is that the DRC doesn't need to be poor at all. It's a nation full of natural resources, a treasure trove that, if efficiently extracted, could generate more than $20 trillion in revenue at current market prices. Even without other industries, this wealth could elevate the Congolese people's living standards to global norms for 2.5 decades. With more realistic predictions, the DRC would not only be one of the wealthiest African countries, but among the richest in the world. However, the story of a country suffering from corruption, war, and economic mismanagement is all too familiar. The Democratic Republic of Congo instability discourages international institutions from making the investments it needs. The nation's wealth is made up of valuable materials like gemstones, metal ores, and petroleum, as well as significant quantities of coltan, cobalt, and lithium, essential components in energy storage devices and electronics. The increasing demand for these materials will outstrip global supply at some point, and only by bringing the DRC's reserves into production can the growth of these industries continue in future. So, what's stopping the Democratic Republic of the Congo from capitalizing on its natural wealth? What can the global community do to remove these barriers? Are there reasons to be optimistic about the DRC's economic future? We'll explore these questions and even more. If you are new here, please like and subscribe to our channel and support for more great videos. The modern story of the Congo begins in 1960 when it finally gained independence from Belgium, ending a brutal era of exploitation. Independence promised hope, but little did the Congolese people know that the road ahead would be far from smooth. At the time of independence, out of 20 million citizens, only 16 had university degrees. Yes, you heard that right, just 16 people. With Belgian officials leaving overnight, the country was thrown into chaos, with no experienced leaders to steer the ship. The shadows of this dark past continue to haunt Congo, even after it gained independence. With only 3 Congolese people previously holding government jobs, without exports, no income, and a crumbling infrastructure. The euphoria of liberation was short-lived, as the nation was soon plunged into a series of political crises and devastating conflicts. As if things couldn't get worse, the Congo crisis erupted. A complex bunch of political and ethnic strife, fueled by Cold War tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union. By 1965, the US-backed President Mobutu seized power, transforming the Congo into a military dictatorship. From his violent reign to the bloody Congo Wars that claimed millions of lives, Congo has rarely known peace or stability. This tragic legacy is a critical piece of the puzzle that we must understand to fully grasp the challenges that Congo faces today. Today, Congo is a land plagued by political instability and corruption. With successive governments failing to deliver on promises of progress and prosperity, the Congolese people have been left disillusioned and helpless. With political divisions still brewing beneath the surface, the only way for the government to hold on to power was through military force. The consequences were severe: human suffering, ongoing conflict, and a dire inability to attract crucial investment to develop the economy. Beneath the soil of the Democratic Republic of Congo lies a treasure trove of natural resources, making it the world's richest country in terms of untapped mineral wealth. With vast reserves of gold, cobalt, and high-grade copper, the DRC is in a prime position to capitalize on the global shift toward electric vehicles. In fact, this African nation was responsible for 41% of the world's cobalt production in 2020. Congo as well has more cobalt reserves than the rest of the world combined. Add to that its status as the 6th largest producer of industrial diamonds, and the DRC quickly emerges as a key player in the world of mining. What sets the DRC's copper reserves apart is their impressive quality, boasting grades above 3%, which is far higher than the global average. This has attracted the attention of international mining companies who are eager to explore the southern copper belt. And let's not forget the gold mining sector, which has experienced a significant surge in interest and production. In the Katanga region alone, an array of minerals can be found, including copper, zinc, manganese, and more. But it's the country's status as the largest producer of cobalt that is set to propel it to new heights, thanks to the growing demand for electric vehicle batteries. And that's not all. With abundant resources scattered throughout the country from diamonds to gold, the Congo is truly a treasure cave waiting to be exposed. There are also wide renewable resources like Kivu Lake, shared by the Congo and Rwanda, which is home to vast amounts of biogas and methane. With the potential to transform these resources into large quantities of natural gas, the DRC could become an essential player in the renewable energy sector. And let's not forget the coastal region, which holds substantial petroleum deposits. While proven reserves are estimated at 180 million barrels, the potential for the DRC to become the second largest petroleum holder in sub-Saharan Africa is undeniable. Imagine the possibilities if this untapped potential were fully realized. The huge promise of untapped wealth has long drawn the interest of international companies, many of which would have loved to set up operations in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, or Zaire, as it was known between 1971 and 1997. Despite the often exploitative nature of these endeavors, effective governance can still produce substantial wealth for all parties involved. Countries like Norway, Canada, the UK, the USA, and Australia have managed to generate significant wealth from natural resource extraction by private enterprise. The key difference is that these nations negotiate resource deals with companies in exchange for compensation that benefits the people through free and open elections. Unfortunately, dictatorships like the DRC only require compensation for the dictators themselves. Even in such circumstances, international companies need stability before investing. Bribing government officials for mining rights in African countries is not a new phenomenon, but companies must also make significant investments in infrastructure and equipment. With nationalization campaigns and ongoing conflicts commonplace in the DRC, attracting foreign investment has been a consistent struggle. This lack of investment has hampered the development of any substantial industry, even for mining. Consequently, most mining in the DRC is done by hand with rudimentary tools by artisanal miners, which are basically like freelancers working especially in cobalt mines in horrible conditions. According to the New York Times in 2021, 30% of the cobalt that is mined is artisanal in the Congo. But on the ground, even in industrial mines, almost all of them have artisanal miners digging in and around them, feeding cobalt into the formal supply chain. When compared to mines in advanced economies, the lack of equipment in the DRC leads to an over-reliance on low-cost manpower. Under normal circumstances, organizations like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank would intervene. These institutions provide loans to underdeveloped or struggling economies to help them make initial investments in productive industries. Ideally, the IMF could loan money to the DRC to build infrastructure and buy equipment for efficient resource extraction. However, billions of dollars in loans have often been mismanaged or embezzled by corrupt government officials, leading the IMF and the World Bank to write off most of these loans and eventually say, "Enough is enough." Furthermore, many leaders in the DRC since independence have resisted efforts to improve the welfare of their people. Wealthier citizens are harder to control, and with the country's factional rivalries, maintaining power is already a challenge without a questioning populace. On the other side, there is level of poverty in Congo, where of the estimated 100 million inhabitants, most people live in extreme poverty. All this creates an endless feedback loop and a problem that seems nearly impossible to solve without foreign intervention in a sovereign country's politics. Understanding the depths of poverty in countries like the Democratic Republic of Congo can be a challenge for economists from more affluent nations. While it's true that the DRC has a GDP per capita of $577 and the average citizen lives on less than $2 a day, these figures alone don't paint a complete picture of the living conditions and financial realities faced by the Congolese people. In 2022, nearly 62% of Congolese, which is around 60 million people, lived on less than $2.15 a day. One critical category often overlooked in GDP figures, especially in underdeveloped economies like the DRC, is household production. Activities like woodworking for personal use or growing food for one's family add value, but aren't included in GDP calculations since they aren't supplied to the market. So, how can an entire nation survive on just $2 a day? The answer lies in the fact that these $2 go much further in impoverished countries than in developed economies. Due to widespread poverty, businesses can't charge high prices, resulting in a lower cost of living. What's truly remarkable is how the people of the DRC adapt to these harsh economic conditions. They are incredibly self-sufficient at the household and community level, relying on their skills and resources to survive. In countries like the DRC, residents often rely on their own resources to meet their basic needs. They farm their own food, gather water, and even construct their own homes. These activities fall under the category of household production, which is not included in national GDP figures. As a result, people who work to earn a couple of dollars a day typically spend that money on items their households cannot produce themselves, such as tools, materials, and fuel. Foreign interests have long played a significant role in the exploitation of natural resources in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC. In recent years, China has emerged as a key player in this context, investing heavily in the country's resource sector, particularly in mining. China's role in the DRC's resource exploitation can be traced back to the late 1990s and early 2000s, when it began to invest in the country's infrastructure and mining sectors. As China's economy grew rapidly, its demand for natural resources increased, prompting the government to seek out new sources of raw materials. The DRC, with its vast deposits of minerals like copper, cobalt, and coltan, was an ideal target for Chinese investment. China's involvement in the DRC's mining sector has led to both positive and negative consequences. On one hand, Chinese investments have contributed to the development of infrastructure and the creation of jobs in the country. Chinese companies have built roads, railways, and power plants, which have helped improve the overall economic situation in the DRC. On the other hand, there have been concerns about the environmental and social impacts of China's resource exploitation in the DRC. Critics argue that Chinese companies often disregard environmental regulations and labor rights, leading to deforestation, pollution, and exploitation of workers. There have also been reports of human rights abuses in mines operated by Chinese companies, including child labor and dangerous working conditions. Moreover, China's involvement in the DRC's resource sector has raised questions about the long-term sustainability of the country's development. Critics argue that the DRC's reliance on Chinese investments and exports of raw materials perpetuates a dependency on natural resources, which can be detrimental to long-term growth and diversification of the economy. In conclusion, while China's role in the exploitation of natural resources in the DRC has brought some benefits in terms of infrastructure development and job creation, it has also raised concerns about the social, environmental, and long-term economic implications of this relationship. To address these issues, it is crucial for the DRC and its international partners to ensure that foreign investments promote sustainable development and adhere to international standards for environmental protection and labor rights. In conclusion, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, a country rich in natural resources, struggles to tap into its full potential due to complex challenges. The foundation of modern economics suggests that specialization and trade can lead to increased overall wealth. But for the people of the DRC, this is easier said than done. Most analysts underline the importance of nation and country specialization, but the DRC's ongoing struggles with war, corruption, and mismanagement make it difficult for its citizens to focus on specialized roles. Instead, most people rely on household industries for survival, which in turn limits the country's ability to build economic wealth. The DRC's GDP at $55.3 billion only gives us a partial picture of its economic situation, as much of its production remains unaccounted for in official figures. The country's large population of nearly 100 million people results in a GDP per capita of $577, making it one of the poorest nations globally. Stability and confidence are critical factors that have hindered the DRC from leveraging its natural resources. Building industries is challenging enough, but the ongoing conflicts, corruption, and mismanagement make it nearly impossible to establish a solid foundation for growth. Despite these challenges, the DRC has experienced some economic growth in the past decade, doubling its GDP. This growth is primarily driven by population growth and basic mining activities using hand tools to extract resources. In summary, the Democratic Republic of the Congo faces immense challenges in building a stable and prosperous economy. To witness a true transformation, the country must overcome its internal conflicts, corruption, and mismanagement issues. Only then can the DRC leverage its natural wealth and achieve a better future for its people.